I'm going to go ahead and call the City Council regular meeting to order. It is 6 p.m. It is Tuesday, February 7, 2023. We are at Granbury City Hall, 116 West Bridge Street in Granbury, Texas, 76048. And I do want to remind everyone here and not here that you can watch this live on Granbury, www.granbury.org/live. Now we'll call to order. For the invocation, I'd like Pastor John Haas to come up. John is the pastor at Stonewater Church in Granbury, Texas.
Thank you for having me. Dear Lord, I pray that you guide us always. Satisfy the needs that need to be met during this meeting. Strengthen us as we make tough decisions. I pray that you will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring. Those waters will never fail. I pray that you will be fruitful. Father, please guide us as during this meeting they can be productive. Thank you, Lord, for everything you do for us. We ask this in your Son's holy name. Amen.
Thank you. Now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll join us, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to these, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. We can move to number 4, proclamation and presentation. City Council and City Manager issue encouraging statements and recognize city staff. Any recognition tonight, Mr. Kaufman?
You bet. First off, I want to thank everybody for a tough week last week. We were administratively closed, but we had folks working. It's similar to the duck swimming across the pond. It looked really calm if you're just looking at the duck, but if you could see underneath, there were a lot of legs moving there. So I wanted to give some special recognition tonight of some achievements that are just some tasks that had to take place, because our public doesn't really realize what all goes on, and it's an opportunity to talk about some of the things that went on. For instance, the Granbury Volunteer Fire Department, they had a list of members here that stayed every night during the freeze at the fire department, ready to make calls and made calls. Those members, 3 days total, were Matt Hohan, Aaron Amos, Kevin Bennett, Chris Oxford, Case Oxford, Diego Guerrero, Cody Young, Maxwell Madison, David Lowry. These members responded to calls from home when available. Freeman Hawker, Ethan Agayo, Landon Drake, Scott Miller, Steve Wiley, Kevin Jones, Lowell Erkenbach, Clint Henderson, and Harris, I'm going to mess this up, Druzanovic. Thank you. Our communication department was busy. I don't know if you were fortunate enough to see our news that goes out, but if you haven't logged on, and anybody watching the website needs to do this, go through the bottom of the homepage and click on Notify Me, and you can sign up for electronic news blasts that come out of our office. We did about, I think there were 37 Facebook posts, 13 Granbury.org news updates, 14 individual emails, and 24 tweets that we gave condition of different things going on throughout the community, including weather conditions, forecast, preparation advice, city, GISD, and Hood County facility statuses. So when somebody closes, we were putting that out so that people would know. Granbury PD, Hood County Sheriff, and TxDOT road closures. We'll cover one of those road closures in a minute when I get to the PD. Trash collection ceases. That couldn't take place, so they had to delay it, and we had to have multiple communication on that because they kept changing it. The city power outage reporting information, we happily had no power outages due to the storm on the city's electric grid and electric municipal, so that was good. And we also were able to get our messaging out that the Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting did meet Tuesday night. We had to have one person driven to give them some transportation assistance, but we did have a quorum and they were able to take care of business, so we didn't have to go through a whole nother multiple week posting notice and everything. So thank that Zoning Board of Adjustment for coming and doing that. I see one of them sitting in the audience. So, the police department had a busy week. Did something special since it was iced in. They actually did a little more work than they normally do when it relates to businesses. They were actually checking for unlocked doors and stuff. They actually found a couple of businesses with unlocked doors. Were able to call those business owners and get them to come secure that building. And in the process of doing that, they checked 158 buildings closely, and they had 497 close patrols set up. So they were working really close, monitoring the business, make sure there was no robberies going on during the ice and things like that. We did have traffic accidents and assists that occurred, as you would expect with the ice. At one point, we closed Highway Loop 567 and called TxDOT and advised them that we'd closed their road and we needed some assistance because we can't take care of all their roads and ours too. And so they came and helped us. Very, very cordial conversation, and they were very quick to get over here, and we were able to open the road back up pretty quick. Visit Granbury was working from home because of the technology that we've implemented through COVID. We've continued that, and our finance department was also able to work from home. But just to hit on a few, of course, there's a lot of admin that went on through Visit Granbury, but what's impressive is on Wednesday, they were supposed to start setting up for the spa show that was to take place over the weekend, and they couldn't start that till Thursday, and it was in Friday. So they were behind schedule, but they were able to assist and get that taken care of, and they had a very successful spa show, hot tubs being sold there at the conference center, and they've already booked a couple of more events for that because they were so successful. It was pretty interesting that our website that runs our Visit Granbury, we're doing some contract negotiations that continued on through last week. And so there's a lot of things going on. The staff worked from home as they could and took care of emails, responded to clients that were asking questions. You know, people from out of town wanting to know what to do to come here with how the weather was that had planned trips here. So they took care of a lot of that. So I've got a whole list of things that they did, but working on next year's Goosebump Jump from home, and it's just interesting to see how creative people were to continue working and provide some service. On the building permitting and inspection front, you would think, oh, they can't do anything. They actually came down and worked half days during that while they could come down, and answered phone calls. They even had people come into the office and take care of their situation when they called or were at the door waiting to get in. And also our fire marshal had to deal with people's frozen sprinkler pipes and help them through that process and getting some things resolved that way. Falling soffit issues caused by freezing rain at a certain apartment complex. So, you know, even though, you know, we look like we're closed, you can see how busy we were. And the finance department encompasses quite a bit of stuff, but just to hit on a few things, the finance department team, you know, responded. They were all working from home with computers for the most part, and responded to FEMA and getting some additional information for the winter storm grant that was back in 2021 that we're still working. They completed major projects for spreadsheet consulting and engineering to ensure streamlined project tracking, and reviewed and approved met a deadline for distributing the 1099s for our distribution to vendors. So that's a hard deadline. You really can't waste your time doing that. So we have to wait till the end of the month to do it, and they came in and actually got that done. Some of them were able to work from home better than others. Some of them, like that 1099, is a hard printed report they had to come in and do, so pretty good stuff. They also began working on the popular annual financial report. Y'all remember that we do after we get our audit, and we're about to have a completed audit for last year, so we want that PAFR, as we call it. So some of those things were started. They continued to work on the audit and report for the city and dealing with the auditors. And they had several meetings via Zoom with the auditors, and questions were answered and data provided. So that's just that office of the, if you go to the utility billing, they set up all the city phones to give messages to provide that we were closed and that what numbers to dial to get that done. Somebody actually has to do that, and they're the ones that do that. They also completed Zone 3 billing. They sent out notifications to 50 people, 50 customers via text or email, alerting them of their unpaid utility accounts, and processed electronic payments. So a lot going on behind the scenes. They continue to work on the phone with people about the utility portal and how to learn to access that and utilize that. Obviously, the phone was ringing to address trash concerns, and that caused a lot of concerns. And then the warehouse team, that's part of the finance department as well, purchasing warehouse. They worked from home on their computer, working on fire quotes for carbon cylinders and firehouse software, review buy board contracts, and work on things with competitive bidding laws. Assisted in purchase of water treatment chemicals for a water treatment plant. Purchased Laserfish utilizing the city's online paperless workflow process and accounts payable. Just reviewed purchases. Generally, I'm going to cover a bunch of these, but reviewed different purchases for different departments. Worked on estimates for the Langdon Center. Y'all know we've got some capital improvements there, so they worked on those behind the scenes and drafted the bid packets for those repairs. And worked on the job description for the vacant tech job position that we have in the warehouse, and so answered various calls as well. Assisted staff with restarting the fuel tanks. So we had some problems with the freezing, and so they had to deal with that with different departments to have things ready for them in the warehouse. But overall, they got to work remote for the most part. I know y'all are tired of hearing me, but I got to keep bragging. I got one more sheet. So Public Works Department, the street department was very busy. They distributed about 30 tons of sand on the streets to try to allow for, safe passage. In addition, after the storm is over and it melted, the street sweeper was running Thursday and Friday picking up that 30 tons of sand. So not only did we use it, but we cleaned it or picked it back up and cleaned the street so it wasn't nasty for the weekend. We didn't really have any big water distribution or sewage collection department problems. Had no major water leaks or sewer backups, just preventive maintenance on all those issues, making sure we were ready for the storm, so hats off to them for that. The wastewater treatment plant had a equipment stoppage from the week before from the old part of the processing plant that hasn't been taken offline yet, and it required them to work on it about a week, and they got that resolved during the cold, hard winter weather. So that's a lot of work that they did. And they endured the elements while they were out there working to unstop that pump system. And then the desal plant had no water issues whatsoever. And the electric department, I'm proud to say, didn't suffer anything like the city of Austin did, because we have a regular contract to trim trees, and the ice wasn't quite as heavy here as it was down there, but we had no outages due to the bad weather. We had some routine outages, but nothing due to ice or a squirrel getting into the lines. But I was extremely happy to see the street sweeper cleaning up the mess as soon as possible, and yeah, that's kind of what happened for that. So hats off to city crews, essential personnel, non-essential personnel for working from home and taking care of business. And I just wanted the public to know what all goes on in the midst of that. I know myself and Rick were here at City Hall manning the desk for the various leadership roles that we need to do. And Michael, lives out on the prairie, and he trudged to town twice to make it here during the heat of the storm. But there are just some things that we needed to do that we had to be here to take care of. So thank you all for that, all you employees. Pat went to the airport every day and checked on everybody and made sure that there were, if there were planes having problems that had to do emergency lands or whatever, he was around and he was able to fulfill those tasks out there. At the same time, we had to have our businesses closed because it's obvious we don't need customers getting out in the weather and having safety issues. But we did successfully have a zoning board of adjustment meeting. Thank you, Richard and team. All right, that's all I got. I've worn you out.
No, some people got worn out, but that was the group that worked last week. A big hand. I think that was outstanding. Yeah, I get asked, so how are things in Granbury? Well, I'm not getting any calls.
No news
so we're
is good news.
No news is good news. Thank
Mayor, Mayor,
you. Yes, sir.
well, we just don't want to leave the mayor, the city manager out. I got a compliment from a colleague today about how the city manager stood up and advocated for him during a variance decision, and I just wanted to pass that on to the rest of the council and also to the audience that, he's doing a great job as well. So, thank you.
Well, then I have to congratulate him too, because the week before he was down presenting to the Texas Transportation Commission. And during that presentation, Highway 377 needs were highlighted extensively. And unfortunately, the road between here and Stephenville is now the fifth. It's number 5 on the list of must be repaired because of the safety issues that are on that. But we have their attention, and I'm hoping that some of the attention we got during the ice storm is because of the great relationship that has been developed there. Thank you. All right. We're going to move to number 5, public comments on agenda items. For non-public hearing agenda items, do we have any? Let me remind you again, we will be having the citizen comments on matters not on the agenda. If you would like to sign up for that, please do. And if you are involved in one of our public hearings, we will hear from Kara and city staff, and then maybe a few questions. But if you're in the audience and would like to speak, certainly during the public hearing would be your time. Okay. Moving along to number 6, we have the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are routine or previously discussed items will be approved with one motion. However, should a member of the city council wish to discuss any item, said item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered under the deliberation agenda. Council?
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
If we could, I'd like to remove 6.3 and 6.5, please, to the deliberation agenda.
Move 6.3 and 6.5 to the deliberation agenda. 6.3, consider approving Granbury Housing Authority's request for a waiver for the 2023 payment. And 6.5, consider approving the Flock Group additional services agreement. That's correct? That's correct. Council, others? Okay. So I'm going to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6.3 and 6.5, which have been moved to the deliberation agenda.
Mayor,
Mr. Vail?
make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6.3 and 6.5. Second.
Mr. Corrigan seconds. So we will now take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. I hear 6 ayes, no nays. Okay.
Before we move on, I forgot something.
Yes, Mr. Goffman.
So I failed to mention one of the highlights that I wanted to mention as during the ice storm. That's one of the trips that Michael had to drive to town. We had a meeting electronically with our consultant that was doing the nationwide search for our public works director, and through that process, we have selected Chester Nolan as he's our interim, but now he's our public works director, and I wanted to let y'all know that it's great to have him on board. He is a seasoned city manager in his own right, 50 years of public service. I added up, and I didn't include Jim Cook into this equation, but with Rick Crownover and Michael and Chester and myself, we've got 139 years of city management experience. So it's pretty cool to have that much resource under one roof, and it's unheard of anywhere really. So it's I think our little town's got a dream team. Everywhere you look, we've got great directors, great staff, and we're excited to bring Chester on as our Public Works Director full-time. He lives in Cleburne. He drives back and forth, but welcome aboard, Chester.
Welcome. Thank you. Okay, let's move to deliberation agenda, and it'll be starting with 6.3. Consider approving the Granbury Housing Authority's request for a waiver for the 2023 payment in lieu of taxes. Ms. Burbo?
Thank you, Mayor. I know this is something that we regularly approve, the pilot program, but I thought this would be a good opportunity because we do have some newer folks here for the Housing Authority to come up and maybe just give us a little bit of education on why we do this. And I see Julia out in the audience. I think she might be able to help us with that.
Julia Richardson is the Executive Director for the Granbury Housing Authority. If you would, come on up and help us out. But while you're coming, I'll just say that the Housing Authority was created by the city. They're a standalone political subdivision, and we work with them. The other entities work. I'll turn it over to you while you're there.
Thank you. Mayor, Council. Again, my name is Julia Richardson. I'm the Executive Director for the Granbury Housing Authority. And so I appreciate the opportunity to educate not only the council, but the public as well, and the community. So the Granbury Housing Authority was established under the Local Government Code 392, which is the State Housing Authority law, which states that a housing authority is a public nonprofit entity established by the state law to undertake a program of low-income housing for low-income families of the community. The property of an authority is public property used for essential public and governmental purposes. The state law stipulates that all housing authorities will operate without profit. They do not pay property taxes, although they may make payments in lieu of taxes, the pilot, to compensate the city for services provided to its tenants. The pilot is a percentage of actual rent collected or charged rather than a tax based on the development's value. The Granbury Housing Authority has a cooperative agreement with the City of Granbury in which the municipality, without cost or charge to the local authority or its tenants, shall furnish public services. So, for example, we are not billed for the trash service. That didn't happen, but that is happening, right? Granbury Housing Authority received funds. We received funds in the form of rent billed to low-income tenants and subsidy received from the federal government, which is HUD. Our rent is calculated based on 30% of gross income. 75% of my residents are elderly or disabled, so they are living off of a fixed income of Social Security only. And so their rents range from anywhere from $114 to $350 a month. The funds available to pay the pilot are needed for continuing the management and maintenance of low-income public housing. This waiver allows the Housing Authority to utilize those funds to support not only the day-to-day operations, which includes maintaining our 100 units, where most of all of the maintenance is completed in-house. It also helps to support the salaries for my staff, which all of my staff are actually Housing Authority residents. Training and education for that staff, not only for them to succeed in their current duties, but to up-level and create opportunities for self-sufficiency and growth, which benefits everyone. How we show up to serve our residents is a reflection of our partnerships with the city, the county, and our community agencies. You know, we've partnered with Forward Training Center, who facilitates the Jobs for Life program, and they also offer free computer training for my staff. I have a paid office internship available to the graduates of the Forward Training Center to provide a safe environment to put what they've learned into practice in an office setting. Texas A&M AgriLife brings their Better Living for Texans programs to my residents. We've hosted this nutritional education program geared for adults that are low income and that are eligible for SNAP benefits. The BLT program helps my residents make healthy meals, improve their physical fitness, save money at the grocery store, grow their own foods in our community gardens, and adopt better food safety habits. The Housing Authority also partners with Cook Children's, and as a part of the Hood County for Healthy Children's Coalition, we bring parenting classes and support through parent cafes to our low-income families. So your approval of to waive the pilot not only benefits the Granbury Housing Authority, it benefits the entire community.
Thank you. Council, do you have questions for Ms. Richardson? I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any openings? Not asking for myself, but
Our openings as far
do you
as
have any
housing?
do you have a wait list?
We do.
How long?
So we have 100 units, and my wait list is anywhere from 18 to 24 months. And so, not only do we not have enough affordable housing to serve the need, Granbury Housing Authority, we support our low-income families, but we also, as you know, have come to the council, and that's why these partnerships and relationships are so important. And so we have come to the council in the past because we're only allowed to have 100 units under HUD, under the HUD umbrella. And so all of our funds can only be used for public funds. So we've had to go outside of that box and applied for tax credits, which then have resulted in tax credit awards for the Hill Court Villas, which is a 48-unit behind Lowe's, 55 and older. And then we have another one, another 48 units, which is Lakewood Crossing, that is due to start, their construction is finishing up, and so that's another 48 units, multifamily. So, yes.
So there's still a need. Okay. There's still a need.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And we will continue on that fight.
Okay. Ms. Burwell? Other questions?
Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other questions before we call this to a vote? Okay. Hear a motion to consider approving the Granbury Housing Authority's request for a waiver for the 2023 payment in lieu of taxes.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been made and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. I hear no nays. It's 6-0. Number 6.5, consider approving the Flock Group Incorporated Additional Services Agreement for the license plate recognition camera, the system that was approved in the 2022-2023 police budget, and authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the contract between the city and Flock Group Incorporated. Mr. Kaufman, good.
Yep.
Trish?
Thank you,
Go
Mayor. This is really, I just wanted to pull this off to see, we had talked about this previously, and the chief had given us a rundown on what it would be, and we talked about the pilot program, and I would like to maybe just get an update from him on how successful it was, if there's a cost benefit to this, and what that looks like.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a tremendous, just with the very limited number of cameras that we currently have deployed, it's been a tremendous help to us. We had an aggravated robbery where a vehicle was stolen that we were able to locate based off of the Flock cameras. The vehicle was located in Benbrook, and they were able to apprehend the suspect in the vehicle when it happened. We had a missing persons report of a man that, with the Flock camera help, we were able to locate him in Dallas and learn that it wasn't a missing person. He was just intentionally not wanting to be around his family. But we've recovered stolen property. We've recovered a couple of stolen vehicles. Like I said, we've got 5 cameras deployed at two and a half intersections. And just off of those 5 cameras, it has given us a wealth of information. We had a ATM burglary just a few weeks ago at one of the banks. Off of the security camera, we were able to do a search based off of the description from the security cameras and actually got a license plate off the suspect vehicle. So this system is going to benefit us greatly in recovering stolen property and suspects having to do with offenses. And just to be clear, I'm sure there's a lot of people are concerned about privacy issues having to do with the system. We can't search anything on this system unless there's an offense report that has been generated. So we have to have a reason to search, and that reason has to be documented because it gets audited. And the only way a vehicle will stay, that the data off of a license plate that we get off of the cameras stays longer than 30 days is if it is associated with an offense report. Other than that, if there's no association to an offense report or a crime on a vehicle, that data is erased after 30 days. So it's not like this information is stored for great periods of time. It's not. 30 days, it's gone if we don't have a crime associated with that plate. But as far as a benefit to law enforcement, it's great because it's going to help us solve a lot of crimes.
Okay.
The only other question I had is on the invoice, I noticed that we originally had talked about the $60,000 initial payment, and then for the second year, that's on there too. Does that all need to be paid at once, or are we parsing that out?
We just pay the 60,000 this year.
Initially,
And then next
okay.
year, we'll get an invoice for the.
Okay, I just wanted to
recurring.
clear that up. Thank
Yeah.
you. That's all I had.
You know, I might just add, for those that are concerned about privacy as well, this system only reads from the rear of the vehicle, so you can't see who's driving it, but it gets the description of the vehicle and a license plate number.
Right,
That's
and
it.
if y'all would like to see what those images look like, I printed one off for y'all to look at to see what we get on these cars. And understand, we don't get it doesn't catch every license plate that goes through these intersections. If there's multiple cars going through an intersection that are tightly together, it's gonna miss half of them as they go through the intersection. So it'll only capture a plate that it can clearly read. But let me just give this to you so you can see an example of
Yeah. I got a council member up here saying maybe we need a spy balloon. I don't know. A spy balloon?
No, these are better than the spy balloon.
I thought about that. I've asked Pat to shoot that down if that happens.
We would.
Well, now I realize why we have such a small audience. We're competing with the State of the Union tonight.
That's it.
Oh.
Darn.
Thank you, Chief. That's all I had.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Vail. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mitch, I think that was great. You know, I think we all, you know, kind of, I'm glad that's not my car, thank you. I think we all just had questions about that, just how that integrates in with the police department. Of course, I always think about the money, and are those resources better, you know, to putting officers on the street? And it sounds like this is a very complementary system that helps, you know, the officers that we do have, and it just seems to add a lot of value to the police department. So
It gives us a way to track down a suspect in any type of offense, and you know, from an aggravated robbery like we had, and we're fortunate enough that they went through an intersection that had a camera on it. We can track them down almost instantly. But you know, another part of that too is that any Amber Alert, any Silver Alert, or any Clear Alert is going to notify us if a vehicle associated with that alert comes into our town as well, and helps us identify those. So the use of this system, you find one person, and this system is worth every stinking penny. You get one bad guy off the street from an ag robbery with a weapon, it's worth its weight in gold to be able to do that. And without that system, we would not have been able to track that person down. So the system is just completely invaluable asset for us to be able to have to solve crimes.
thank you.
You bet.
Other comments? Okay. Call for a vote on 6.5. Consider approving the Flock Group, Inc. additional services agreement for the license plate recognition camera system that was approved in the 2023 police budget, and authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the contract between the city and Flock Group, Inc. All in favor, say aye. I need a motion.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Wadley. Mr. Vail? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Very good. We will move to the deliberation agenda, 7.1, and this will be a public hearing. We'll open after we hear the information from staff. Consider adopting ordinance number 2312, approving the request of Granbury Nissan Properties LLC for the specific use permit to allow tractor sales and service, trailer sales, ATV and UTV sales, tractor implement/accessory sales and construction equipment, rental/sales, and heavy commercial HC zoning district. The property is addressed as 4601 East Highway 377.
I'll take it. Thank you, Mayor, Council. We have been working with this project for quite some time. Our zoning is had to be addressed, and Kara walked through that process in the past few months. But now then, we're ready to move forward with a business opportunity that avails to the new zoning. So at this time, I'll turn it over to her and let her walk you through this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you. So this first slide here it shows outlined in blue the subject property, which is currently a automobile dealership. And as stated, the purpose of this request is for an SUP for small tractor and implement sales and service repair, new and used, as well as utility trailer sales and ATV sales with actual UTVs. Those are utility terrain vehicles and all-terrain vehicles. So as we can see on this slide, that aerial is a little bit dated, and there's development that's occurred since the aerial was taken. But the site sits along US 377, which is a major commercial corridor along which other similar types of uses are located. Abutting or across the street to this use are office as well as retail uses, and along the south side of the site is Saratoga Boulevard, which leads into the Saratoga development, and multifamily is to the south of the property. Whoops, let's see. Okay. So this slide shows the zoning map. That red color is heavy commercial, and you can see the heavy commercial districts there in red. Light commercial is to the north and multifamily to the south. So the site is within like zoning. And these are just some recent photos of the property. The bottom photo shows the dealership building. That's the peaked roof that you can see kind of in the middle of the site, or the shot. And then the other photo was taken up the street to the east. I believe that's towards the east. Yeah. This shows some of the examples of the equipment that they would be proposing, that they are going to be proposing to have on the site for sale and so on. The first upper right is the UTVs, and to the right are the small tractors and implements. The zoning ordinance that was adopted limits these small tractors and implements to no more than 8 feet in height, so they couldn't ever be displayed at a height greater than 8 feet in height. It also requires a site area of 2.5 acres. This site is about 8 acres in overall height. I have a couple more slides of the examples of small tractors and small implements that they are currently proposing on the property, and some of the activities. The project is a phased project. I'm not sure why, but my slides are a little mixed up. But this is showing the overall project area. Phase 1 would be that area as a U shape outlined in green on your screen. That's where they would initially start their small implement and UTV and trailer sales use. So the remainder of the site would continue as the automobile dealership. And then to the east of the site, on site are 2 buildings that are currently used for repair activities. That is an existing SUP that was granted in the past, and they're proposing to maintain those repair facilities as existing. The blue outline on the property represents the overall outcome of this proposal, on which phase 2 would be entirely implemented, and the property would be used all over for that small implement tractors and small implement dealership, along with the UTVs as well as the repair facility there. Okay, so as usual, we sent out public notice. We had 21 notices on this property, and we also published in the newspaper. We've received no input either in support nor in opposition to the request. On January 9th, the Plan Commission recommended unanimously to support and recommend approval of the SUP to the City Council with these conditions that are in your report, and I'll just go over them in a high level. Subject to periodic inspections and other requirements of the city code, subject to the site plan Phase 1 and Phase 2, which were two different exhibits, an A and a B, and those will be the governing plans. All parking, maneuvering, display, and storage must be on an improved hard surface. All fire lanes shall remain clear of obstructions at all time. And compliance to these conditions as well as the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And it is subject to the city code requirements again. And staff has the same recommendation for approval. And these are your voting options as shown on this slide. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
I might just add that this is where the Nissan dealership is, and we're not losing a Nissan dealership. We're actually transitioning as they move forward to build a new Nissan dealership. So this land will eventually be solely for this small implement equipment, and it's those little ATVs and UTVs. So that's a big project. And so welcome. Thank you for getting to this point. I know you've been working hard. This has been about a 10-month process. So thank you all for your patience and working through that. This is Charbel and Belinda with the Nissan dealership. Charbel's the owner. Any questions for Kira?
Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Rodriguez.
Kara, is this SUP have a date or time expiration on this, or is this a SUP that does not have one?
I apologize. I guess my slides have been having problems, so I just wanted to verify that question here. Just a second, please.
Typically, when we have a project like this for car dealerships or boat dealerships, it goes with that business.
Okay.
And so should they change what they're doing and want to do something different, they need to change their SUP.
Okay. So and the second question is so this is for phase 1 and 2 in the entire site? Okay.
We don't have to address it again, and they don't have to worry about it. So that if you approve it tonight, they will have the confidence and the vested right to move forward, buy their inventory, whatever they do to secure their inventory, and start selling those little pieces of equipment. So.
Right, so there's no time frame.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor,
Mr. Vale.
just quick question. What's the timetable on this, Chris? In terms of phase 1 and phase 2, the timetable?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the moratorium.
True, okay. There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Questions? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to speak at this point in time. See no one raising their hand. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Council, do you have other questions? No other questions? Okay. Let me get back to the agenda item here. 7.1, consider adopting ordinance number 2312, approving the request of Granbury Nissan Properties LLC for a specific use permit to allow tractor sales and service, trailer sales, ATV and UTV sales, tractor implement/accessory sales, and construction equipment, rental sales in the heavy commercial heavy commercial zoning district. Property is addressed as 4601 East Highway 377. We can approve as presented, approve with additional other conditions, continue the item to the next, and deny the request. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve as presented.
Mr. Wadley makes the motion.
Second.
Ms. Burwell seconds. Call for a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. I hear it passes 6-0. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We'll move to 7.2. Consider approving amendment number 1 to the Facilities Improvement Agreement, which is the FIA 21-03, between the City of Granbury and 144 Residences to extend the time of the agreement for 1 year. Okay. Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I'll turn it over to Rick Crownover, ACM.
Mayor, council members, Mr. Kaufman, Rick Crownover, Assistant City Manager. This is 144 Residences. Just a brief recap, since it's been a couple of years since we've been here. I think most everybody knows where it's at. It's on South Morgan. There's a big ditch, a big hole over by the fence, and so it's a single-family resident development. It's roughly 136 lots. I think there's a couple of commercial lots in there. The lots average size of about 8,000 feet, which fits with the comp plan. There's 2 points of access, one off Morgan with a decel lane, working with TxDOT on that, and another point of ingress on South Meadows Drive up the road from the racetrack before you get to the schools. This development has had a change of ownership, is what has held it up quite a bit. They're not alone in that respect, as council's aware, but they've run into some other complexities with supply chain issues and contractor issues. In talking with inspections and with city engineer, I would say they're roughly 50% done. The 12-month request was by them. We agreed to that. There's kind of, if you look at that development, there's 2 shelves. The top shelf is probably pretty close to being done with a lot of the water, except for the bore under the highway where they'll have to access water from the east side of 144. They still like some of the wastewater infrastructure and, of course, the drainage. As you can see from the road, they'll need to do that. And, of course, they need to construct all the streets, which are 50-foot right-of-ways with 30-foot face-to-face streets. So it's a good project. It's just running behind, and they're asking for a 12-month extension to get this. The contractor's been working. The new owner, we've had meetings with Mr. Zach and Mr. John Hall. They know how we operate here at the city, so we look forward to working with them and getting this project to the finish line as soon as possible. The FIA extension is, as I mentioned, they're requesting 12 months. The FIA is roughly $4.5 million. Mayor, I would like to point out on the staff report, there's an error on there. That FIA says revised current cost update. That is not an engineer's probable opinion of cost. That is a staff about a 12-13% estimate that we were messing with, and about $530,000. We're not recommending that. However, that should not be there in your staff report, and I apologize for that error. But be happy to answer any questions, but again, we recommend approval of an extension of the FIA with 144 residences for 12 months.
Rick, I'd like to just clarify for the record that we do have the bonds on file for the FIA.
Yes, sir.
And we're not under leveraged at all.
No, sir. The surety is fine.
We're completely taken care of administratively on that front. So while the project has lingered due to the transition, much of the infrastructure has been installed, inspected, approved, and still waiting on the roads, and a little bit of the drainage is what I understood last time I checked. So,
yes, the surety is in very good shape. Thank you for bringing that up. But Public Works and building inspections are working hand in hand with this developer, and we're out there daily. So, thank you.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mayor. Rick, you think, I know we usually do FIAs in 6 months increments. They're asking for a 12-month here. Is that going to be sufficient? I just don't want to come back again and kind of do the 6-month thing over and over. Is 12 months sufficient?
Yes, sir. We believe so.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Okay. We'll call the vote then. Consider approving amendment number 1 to the Facilities Improvement Program FIA 21-03 between the City of Granbury and 144 Residences to extend the time of the agreement for 1 year. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Corrigan makes a motion. Mr. Rodriguez, second. Second. Call a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. I hear no nays. Passes 6-0. 7.3. Consider approving amendment number 1 to the Facilities Improvement Agreement FIA 20-01 between the City of Granbury and Royal Express Car Wash to extend the time of the agreement for 6 months.
This is the Royal Car Wash located between the First Financial Bank and Arrow Feeds. It's been under construction now for some time. The reason for the 6 months, the FAA is almost complete. It's almost complete to the point where I have from inspections a 10-point punch list, varying from installation of street lights and sidewalks to remedying some erosion problems, some fire lane problems. So the heavy duty stuff for the FIA is there. That's why I only recommend it for 6 months. But and having said that, we still go through what we call a closeout process with the FIA and with the development, and that takes a little time to close that out. Acquire the maintenance bond, which is 120% for 2 years. So this should be adequate to get this project to the finish line. I don't see the developer here tonight, but the surety is fine, as Mr. Kaufman admitted to the other one. So we're in good shape, and staff recommends 6 months to get this project finished.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions, comments from council? Mr. Wadley.
I don't know that it matters, but in our packet, it shows that the subject property is the bank. That picture right there, not adjacent to the bank.
I think that's off about a score. Sorry about that.
And again, for what we're deciding, I don't think it matters.
I saw that.
That ought to be cleaned up probably.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, that is the bank.
Thank you, Mr. Wadley.
Get your car washed and make
I think,
Get your car washed and get a loan, I guess. Yeah. My apologies
I'm
for
familiar
that.
with the president of the bank. That could be a surprise.
Yeah.
Thank you. You'll take care of that, Kara, Mr. Gronover. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, apologize. I'm 2 for 2. So.
Other comments? Thank you. For those of you out there who don't think we read this beforehand, thank you, Mr. Wadley. Okay. 7.3, consider approving amendment number 1 to the Facilities Improvement Agreement FIA 20-01 between the City of Granbury and Royal Express Car Wash to extend the time of the agreement for 6 months. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Wadley makes a motion. Ms.
Second.
Burwell seconds. I'll call a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. I hear no nays. Passes 6-0. Thank you. Number 7.4 is a public hearing that I will call as soon as staff presents the information. Consider adopting ordinance number 23-13, approving the request of Brian and Nancy Romberg for a specific use permit to allow short-term rental residential unhosted in a residential 12,000 zoning district. The property is addressed as 701 Lipan Highway. Mr. Kaufman.
I'll turn it over to our Community Development Director, Kara, while we take care of these 3.
Okay, thank you. Here we go. So this slide shows the aerial with the site outlined in blue. The site is about 0.4 acres in size. You might recognize this site. The last time we saw it was zone change to all of it being R12 or residential zoned. It also carries a historic conservation overlay. No historic required review was for this property. And it is a short-term rental, unhosted proposal with 3 bedrooms and an existing single-family dwelling. It's the first time for such on this property. This map shows the zoning on the site. You can see the kind of a pink color along Lipan. That's a commercial district, although all of the properties are residential there. And this is our context map that shows in pink outline other short-term rentals that are located nearby. This is the site plan. It shows the existing single-family house with the existing drive off of Lipan. 3 bedrooms require 3 parking spaces for short-term rentals, And in order to accommodate those 3 parking spaces, the existing drive will be enlarged or made more wide by about 3 feet. So it's a very minor improvement that's needed there. And the building generally screens all that parking lot, existing shrubbery and trees also. This is the floor plan. It shows the 3 bedrooms and other rooms in the dwelling. And then photographs where that white vehicle is where the parking will be. And the other photograph is along the side street. I think that's Cogdale. We provided public notice with mailings to 22 persons, as well as in the newspaper. We did not have any responses to those notifications. On January 9th, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the SUP with a unanimous 6-0 vote and these conditions with a 1-year time frame, subject to the site plan as well as the floor plan, limited to 3 bedrooms, and subject to the supplemental standards contained in the zoning ordinance, all other city code requirements, a violation statement, and the last condition there requires the improved hard surface for that extra parking area prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. And staff has the same recommendation and conditions, and these are your voting options. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Do you have questions of, yes, Mr. Rodriguez?
Kira, can you go back to that floor plan?
The floor plan?
Yeah, so the study slash den, if they get the approval today for the SUP and they decide, we got the approval and they put another bed in there, what's the recourse if we find out that they've used that as a 4th bedroom?
Right. So compliance would consist of up to revocation of the SUP.
Okay. So we would pull their SUP at that point?
That would be one option. There would be, there's a permit associated with the specific use permit. There's an additional administrative permit that also has some enforcement requirements, including fines.
So if they advertise it for 4 bedrooms or
right.
3.5, I don't know.
Right. Then we would generally implement the code enforcement staff to check on them.
Okay. And they can be inspected, since it's a Airbnb or short-term rental, they can be inspected at any time. Is that correct or no?
Well, they could be inspected at any time. I'm not sure. I know what our operational policy is on code compliance. But if there was a complaint, typically they would go out and check a property.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wadley.
Yeah, Kira, can you show the slide that shows the other properties that are short-term rentals? It's right in the middle. Yeah, it's fine. It's just, it seems like we get farther and farther from the historic district, like there was one that was in the neighborhood behind the Toyota dealer that we actually, I think they made it a long-term rental instead because it was in an actual neighborhood. This has plenty around it I don't have an issue with that, I guess, but they just seem to move further and further out.
It's in the historic overlay district,
I understand.
and our ordinance won't permit them to be brought to you unless they're in the historic district or the historic overlay.
Okay.
So you won't have to worry about it anymore behind the Toyota dealership coming to you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I do have a question. Is this the one that was going to get a new fence on the side, or how are they meeting the parking requirements?
This one was existing. It has the building, the house itself that provides the screening.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Staff? Okay. If there are no other questions from staff, I'm going to call this public hearing. Does anyone would like to speak on this matter at this point in time? I see no one, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Other questions, comments? No? Consider adopting Ordinance number 23-13, approving the request of Brian and Nancy Romberg for a specific use permit to allow a short-term rental residential unhosted in a residential zoning district. The property is addressed as 701 Lipan Highway. Do I hear a motion?
So
Ms.
moved.
Burwell?
Second.
I hear a motion from Ms. Burwell, second from Mr. Corrigan. Call the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. I hear no nays. Be passing 6-0. Number 7.5, consider adopting ordinance number 2314, approving the request of Robert Bowman for a specific use permit to allow a short-term rental residential unhosted in a residential zoning district. The property is addressed as 405 South Hannaford Street. This too is a public hearing. We will get to that after staff report. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Again, here's your location map with this site outlined in blue on the east side there of Hannaford. Adjacent properties are zoned and used for single-family residential purposes. This also is in the historic compatibility overlay. No historic review is required since they're not making any improvements. They're using the site as is for proposing a SUP for short-term rental unhosted with 3 bedrooms in a single-family dwelling. This is zoning map, shows the site along with its residential zoning district, and it's surrounded all by that residential zoning district. This is the context map that shows the nearby SUPs for short-term rentals that have been approved. I'll give you a second to look at that. Okay. And this is the site plan. So there's a lot of lines on this site plan. There's the single-family residence that's outlined in blue, and there's a couple of accessory buildings that will remain as accessory building purposes. All of the parking will be towards the front of the property. There's an arched driveway, and that will hold 2 parking spaces, and then a head-in space that will hold 1 parking space. So with 3 bedrooms, you have a total of 3 parking spaces required. And this is the floor plan. There are only 3 bedrooms proposed in this floor plan, and that's what we rely on to demonstrate the use as the floor plan. And this just shows the photographs, recent photographs of the house and the front yard area. Shows the fencing that's already existing that would screen that light sweep that was mentioned. It's a requirement to screen that. And our public notices, we did send out 28 letters, and we also notified in the paper. We've not received anything in support or in favor or in opposition of the proposal. On January 9th, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval with these conditions. 1-year term, subject to the site plan and the floor plan as documented. The limitation of 3 bedrooms, the SUP subject to the zoning ordinance supplemental standards, as well as code requirements, and then a violation statement. There are no additional conditions, just these 6. And staff had the same recommended conditions. These are your voting options, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Council, questions for staff? Hear no questions. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this matter. I see no one. So close the public hearing. Consider adopting ordinance number 23-14, approving the request of Robert Bowman for a specific use permit to allow short-term rental residential unhosted in a residential zoning district. The property is addressed 405 South Hannaford Street. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Vail.
make a motion to approve ordinance 2314 with the 6 conditions as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ms. Burwell seconds. Take this to a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. I hear no nays. It is passing 6-0. Another public hearing, 7.6. Consider adopting ordinance number 23-15, approving the request of 4 Shelby Inc. for a specific use permit to allow short-term rental residential unhosted in a residential zoning district. The property is addressed 411 Mill. Ms. Otway?
Okay, again, this is your site location map with this property outlined in blue. The proposal is for a existing single-family dwelling used for proposed short-term rental unhosted and with 2 bedrooms. This shows the single-family residential zoning on the property there in yellow. Medium-density zoning, that's multifamily zoning, is to the south with multifamily development. This is your context map showing nearby short-term rentals outlined in pink. And then this is the site plan. On this particular property, the parking has already been installed with 2 parking spaces for the 2 bedrooms. And in addition, while there are screening for the lights from the vehicles to the south, there's an accessory building and some other improvements that would screen that lighting. The applicant is including on their plan a proposal to install shrubs for screening to the west. This shows the floor plan with the 2 bedrooms and photograph of the house from the street. And our public notice was sent out to 21 property owners, also advertised in the newspaper, and we didn't receive any input either in support or in opposition. However, we did have one person come to Plan Commission and speak. They were asking how many of these types of uses would there be.
What were they asking?
They were asking how many of these types of uses could there be, how many in the historic districts in the city. So the Planning Commission recommended on January 9th approval with these conditions and with a unanimous 6-0 vote. And I'll review these briefly. A 1-year term, subject to the site plan and the floor plan, no more than 2 bedrooms, and the 3 last are the standard conditions as you've heard previously, no additional requirements. The staff recommends approval as well with the same conditions, and these are your voting options. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Council, questions? Staff? Not? I'm going to open the public hearing. Does anyone would like to speak on this matter? See no one. I will close the public hearing. Consider adopting ordinance number 23-15, approving the request of 4 Shelby Inc. for a specific use permit to allow short-term rental residential unhosted in a residential zoning district. The property is addressed at 411 Mills. Do I hear a motion?
Mayor,
Mr. Vail?
make a motion to adopt ordinance 2315 with the conditions as presented.
Do I hear a second? Second from Mr. Corrigan. Call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. I hear no one opposed. Passes 6-0. We'll move to 7.7. Consider making an appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission to fill a vacant seat. We've had a resignation from the Historic Commission, long time and very valued individual. We will thank him and congratulate him at a later time as he moves forward. But we have Mr. David Everett, Mr. William D. Dwight, Ms. Cheshie Langford, and Mr. Dawson Pulliam, and Ms. Carolyn Reeves. And these are one of the things that we encourage as you put your application in is leave your application. Sometimes we don't have enough openings to cover all of the applications, and this was the past time. We had a number of really very, very good applicants, and these people have put their applications back in. So do I hear a motion for any of these people or others to fill this role?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate William D. Dwight.
I hear a nomination for Mr. Dwight. Do I hear other nominations? Do I hear a second for Mr. Dwight?
I'll second that.
I hear a nomination for Mr. Dwight. I hear no other nominations have seconded. Call for a vote. All in favor of Mr. Dwight, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. I believe that would pass 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Dwight, for your service. Okay. Number 7.8, consider adopting resolution number 23-04 to provide a city naming policy for the naming or renaming of a city street or other city-owned facility, park, or a major feature within a park or facility by any person, group, business, or organization. Mr. Ross is going to walk us through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Yes, we've had a couple of inquiries in recent times on the subject, and City Manager felt that it was time to create a policy and a procedure to kind of help guide us through this and ultimately help council make decisions as we step through this procedure. So we've tried to outline parks possibilities, facility possibilities, street possibilities. Each would have a different path. A street would go through planning and zoning to the city council. A park would go through Parks Board on its way to the city council. Facilities would just be reviewed by staff and ultimately a recommendation to city council. So that's the summary of what's in here. Happy to talk about any of the specifics or consider any other alternatives that you all might like.
I might just add that this is simply something that we researched to see what other cities did. We settled on the city of Buda as kind of the role model. We like theirs the best. If there's something that gives you heartburn here, we're certainly interested in making it work for y'all, however you want it to work. At the end of the day, we want this to be a policy that the council's happy with, that we can move forward with confidence as various requests come in and we don't know how to handle them other than let them lie without an answered question. So it also would, if somebody wanted a plaque, we've already been doing some park benches in honor and through an informal process, but that would need to go through this process in the future. I know that we're doing a picket fence. The council blessed that with the names on the pickets. And so, there'll be other opportunities for different things in the future as fundraising activities, selling bricks at Memorial Park. We've facilitated some of that kind of thing. But in fact, the Jim Burke's Fireman's Park, Memorial Park, was donated under conditions of a deed. They donated the land, followed similar guidelines here without even having a policy. So I think it's just important that we ink it up, put some parameters on what this is. Somebody wants to put up a statue of somebody, it's got to go through the right committee to be reviewed, and we get the statue that we want, that's complimentary of the city and everybody's happy with it, or whatever, a plaque, a renaming of a street, building, facility, park, whatever you can imagine. We've had all kinds of requests for different things. So anyway, we feel pretty good about what we got as a general guideline, and if you adopt it and we move down the road and there's a quirk in it, we can bring back and amend it. We just need to probably get something started here. Thank you.
Comments?
Mayor,
Ms. Burwell.
I just want to say thank you for doing this to the staff, Michael and staff. We have a lot of Granburyans who have been here most of, if not all of their lives, and I think that in the future we're probably going to see a lot of requests for this in addition to what we've already seen. So I appreciate putting this down on paper. I just have one quick question, and it's just regarding the number of 5,000 and below. What prompted that number to just go ahead and push that through on for the smaller items being named? I think I read in there that it wouldn't have to go to council, come to council if it were something that were under $5,000. I was just curious how that number was brought about.
Yeah, request to name individual features with a value of less than 5,000, such as a park, such as park benches, fountains, furniture, etc., shall be referred to city staff and not require the approval of city council. So the thought was that a park bench could just be handled administratively. If council would rather everything come to you instead of that, we could certainly change that easily if that's your preference. Good question.
Mr. Wadley?
If an organization does a project like Memorial Lane, it had benches that people have their names on, does our policies supersede what they did? If they're doing a project, can they still do what they want? We're not going to step on their toes, you know what I'm saying?
If we discovered a conflict of some kind that wouldn't allow them to do something, I would anticipate they could continue doing what's already been approved and they've been doing. However, if we needed to, if something new was happening or if they wanted to expand something, we'd like to think, that was the purpose of this, that this would catch anything. I mean, large, small, whatever. And if it doesn't, as Chris said, we would just simply bring an amendment forward at the next council meeting to address that and make sure we adjusted it if necessary.
I guess my point was when people plan great things for our community, we certainly encourage that. And I don't want a policy that we come up with to, where people, somebody's going to say, well, that kind of messes up what we had in mind. I don't want us to do that.
Right.
And again, Memorial Lane was the one that really came to mind because there's several benches there that have names on them. And the folks at Memorial Lane, when they designed that, they decided what the contribution was to put your name on a bench or a tile or whatever, or the brick. And so, I don't want anything that we do to mess up what someone else wants to do.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So at the same time, they did come to the council and get approval with a plan of what they wanted to do, and y'all voted on it. So it's same thing. And somebody else wants to, say Rotary wants to do another park feature or something, we could run them through this, and it would ultimately come to the council for approval.
Sounds good.
It's meant to be a catch-all for anything like that, and certainly it's meant to help.
And the Optimus Park, they've donated several things that the Optimus Club has donated literally tens of thousands of dollars for playground equipment. That comes to the council.
Right.
Of course, the park's named after them. They're that play park. So that happened before we had a policy, but at least now we've got some idea who's going to pay for what and how it moves forward. And ultimately, the council makes the decision to accept a gift or not.
Right.
Or name recognition. And there's plenty of folks that are deserving of name recognition that I've learned since I've been here. So
Right.
there may be a wave of these things coming. Who knows?
Ms. Burwell?
Thank you. Back to my original question on $5,000, to use Chris's word, I don't necessarily have heartburn over it, but I think for consistency's sake, maybe the entire process should just come to council, even through consent agenda, simply so that we have the opportunity to talk about it before it's actually put in place.
Sure.
That would be my only suggestion. The rest of it looks great.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Trish, I think that's a great idea. Maybe, here's a consideration of if we're having other boards address, like Parks Board, have them address it, and maybe we don't have to have that come to council. That's just an idea. If it's park related, or if it's related to historical district, have the Historic Preservation Commission look at it. Maybe assign those to the different boards, and I don't know if we can give them the authority to do that. And anything that they can't figure out, it can come to City Council as a consent agenda. What are your thoughts about that?
I'm under the impression that it's all going to come to us anyway, ultimately. Is that correct? Did I interpret that correctly, Chris? Even if it goes through
No,
other...
the $5,000 threshold would would make it where it's approved, recommended
By
for approval
staff.
by the particular respected board, and then staff would just move on it. So I got no problem changing that and making everything, really, it gives them some special recognition as well through that process, and might make them feel better about their donation. Remember the little girl that raised the money
Yes.
for the park? And, that was less than, it might have been $5,000, but it was so neat to have her come to the council meeting and make her, she was 5 years old, wasn't she? Made a little presentation to us and explained the money she'd raised for this playground equipment, and I think maybe we need to do away with that provision of less than 5,000.
And we can, if that's council's desire, of course, we can just, with your direction, modify it to meet the intent of the council, if you'd like to just add that to your.
You can approve it pending
that.
the change, and then we'll edit it before we execute it.
Okay. Is this a public hearing? Do we need to?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I would go ahead and make a motion to approve this with that one condition of removing the $5,000 mark.
And I will second.
And everyone's through discussing? Okay. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. I hear no nays. It's passed with the changes that, or the amendment that was recommended. Thank you. Thank you all. I think that's, excuse me. I think it's also very good for our citizens, because they can look, we have a policy, we have a process, we have a procedure, and they can work with the city to make these things happen versus just wondering, could this happen? Thank you. At this time, we will go to citizen comments on matters not on the agenda. Speakers have a time limit of 3 minutes for a combined total of 30 minutes allotted at this time for comments regarding matters not listed on the agenda. The City Council will be allowed to receive input or information for future agenda items, but will not be allowed to enter into any discussions. Ms. Walker, do we have anyone that's signed up? Okay. We have no one that's signed up? All right. We're going to declare that the Granbury City Council is convened into open session. All members are present. The City Council will now go into closed session pursuant to provisions of Texas Government Code in accordance with the authority contained in the following sections: consultation with attorney, pending or contemplated litigation, deliberation regarding real property, and deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, and 551.074 personnel matters regarding annual performance evaluation and compensation for the city manager. We are now into closed session. I now declare that the Granbury City Council reconvenes into open session. There was action taken in the closed session. There was no action taken in the closed session. All council members are present. Do we have any action to take at this session?
Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Burwell.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to enter into negotiations with Granbury ISD and other participating industries to execute an MOU for use of certain facilities.
Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vale. Any discussion? Well, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. I hear no nays. It passes 6-0. I too have a motion to make. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute a contract for legal services to join as an intervener in the litigation, including wastewater treatment plant and the TCEQ.
I second that.
Mr. Wadley seconds. We'll call for a vote. Is there any discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Nay. I hear no nays. That passes 6-0. Any other business? Hear that there's no other further business. I announce the meeting adjourned.